Very warm welcome to everybody to this superb. Hi, Christina. Good to see you to this superb session that we're been looking forward to today. Carolina, good to welcome you. Lauren, hi. And Bob, welcome. And Samuel, wonderful that you could be here. I don't suppose you know Elaine and Mike at all.
Hello, Sam. Always good to see Sam.
Yeah, of course it is. Yes. So just to let people know, we're beginning to record this session. We have a number of people who have asked whether they could see the recording. So if you're comfortable with that, that would be great. We've got a few more people to join, I think, but we are getting much up to number now that we had expected. Prashansa Pandey, good to see you. Thank you for being with us. Susan is our support worker today, and we have Lana, who is also supporting us. Catherine Milligan, hi, lovely to see you join us. And of course, you know Elaine already.
Hi, Catherine. Good to
Hi everyone.
Good to see you.
It's good for you to be with us. And what we have here is a wonderful cross-section of the Catalyst Now community and others who are joining us from outside that community to make our own special community with you today, Elaine and Mike. Pamela, lovely to have you join us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for explaining that.
Good to have you with us, Pamela. It's great that you should be here. So I think probably I'll get us started because I know that Elaine gets very, very angry if she doesn't get on time. I'm going to get us moving pretty quickly. If people would like to put their names in the chat and just say where they come from, that's super. Not a problem. And it would be just nice to have that sharing as we go. Either the organization or the country or whatever you would like to say about yourself. So I just want to say that in handing over to Elaine and Mike, who are going to run this session for us, I just wanted to say that Elaine is a good friend of mine, and we do go back quite a way to when we were even younger than we are now. And so she is in fact the founder of the Trauma Resource Institute, which is the organization that both she and Mike belong to and work for. And Mike, I'm pleased to say, you've grown to be a good friend as well, which is a privilege for me. And of course, you're the executive director of the TRI. So welcome to you both. We are so grateful to you both, Elaine and Mike, for taking the time to be with us today. And today you've chosen the subject, healing our hearts, minds and bodies in uncertain times. Welcome to you, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Chris. And it's always a privilege for me to see you and hear you. Just hearing your voice is a resource for me. And it's so wonderful to see everyone that's with us today. Mike and I have been thinking about these issues for many, many moons. And we were so happy when we were invited to come and speak to all of you. So I'm going to start off. We do have a PowerPoint presentation that I think Mike has put into the chat. We're not going to cover every slide, but we put a lot of detail at the end that you can look at your own time if you want to look at a little bit about the research, about the model that we present. But let me start with just saying, we are certainly living in uncertain times, marked by fires, floods, earthquakes, wars, pandemics, funding cuts, and deep social division. And yet, with this uncertainty, we have found that there is an opportunity to strengthen our capacity to heal, both individually and collectively. We work so much with different organizations around the world. We work in ways that hopefully we have brought a lot of hope when people have felt a bit of hopelessness. And we've also been so keenly aware of the hope that exists in people, even when they face such horrible situations that many people in our world that we may know deeply ourselves are facing. And I think that's one of the privileges of being a world citizen, is that when I hear a headline or something comes across my internet, and it's, oh, something's happened in Ukraine, or something's happened in, I'm thinking about people in Afghanistan right now with the earthquake that just happened. And we have colleagues and friends in all these different places. So it's not so separate from us that work, as all of you do, as social entrepreneurs, of people bringing um, uh, ideas for healing and connection to our world community. And uncertainty naturally stirs feelings of fear, anxiety, and even despair. But our nervous systems are wired to detect threat, and when the world feels unpredictable, we may find ourselves in what we call the high zone. We'll talk a little bit more about that. We may feel agitated, restless, overwhelmed, in the low zone, shut down, numb, hopeless. Now, neither of these states mean we are broken. They are natural biological responses, but they do make it harder to think clearly, to connect with others, and to feel safe in our own skin. But here's the good news. We are designed for well-being. We're designed for resilience. It's not something that some people have and others don't. It's a biological capacity that can be nurtured and strengthened. And just as our nervous systems can be overwhelmed, they can also be rebalanced. And when that happens, we are more present with ourselves, and we're more present with others and in the world. And we are going to talk a little bit more in detail about the underpinnings of this. And then we're going to go into a breakout room and talk about some of the things that nurture us, so that we also have some time for connection in our group today. So, Mike, with that, do you want to just say hello for a second while I get the slides up?
Absolutely. Welcome, welcome, welcome. As Elaine noted, we are here to provide just a little bit more information, and also to identify ways, like she said, of helping us nurture and expand our well-being. Because I know, for example, as a helper, as a clinical psychologist, uh, sometimes it weighs heavily, oftentimes it weighs very heavily on my own system, on my own reactions. And I know, as I try to learn to help others, I need to use certain skills to help expand my well-being, so that I can stay engaged, versus my tendency to disengage when I'm feeling overwhelmed. And so I hope, we hope that you find these skills and what we talk about today very helpful.
Thank you, Mike. And I think it's so important. We are the helpers. And if we lose our internal balance, which at times, of course, we will, but how do we get back to, like, what we call our zone of well-being, so we can do the work that we're all dedicated to? So when we were thinking about the concepts and even the title today. Healing the heart means cultivating compassion. Healing the mind means grounding in the present moment, and there's skills to be able to do that. So then when we're in the present moment, we're not thinking about the past, or maybe that much in the future, but we're right here of what we can manage. Healing the body means learning to distinguish between well-being and distress within our sensory system. And we're going to talk more about that. And then healing together means remembering that we do not walk alone, which is very apparent by all of us who are here today. So, as I've already spoken about, we can't control the storms that come our way, but we can strengthen the shelter within. So each breath, each moment that we're have the ability to sense into our well-being, which can come from small acts of kindness. Each skill we practice is a step towards personal, familial, and community well-being. And we have had such the honor to see this worldwide, in the over, I think, 77 countries that we've been able to bring our models to. And we often ask this question with all the suffering, and of course, to acknowledge the suffering, to be a witness of it, but also to say, what else is true? What else is true? And these are questions that we have used all over the world to sometimes start conversations, and we're going to start our conversation with you today with them. What or who is helping you right now? What or who has helped you through difficult times in the past? And maybe have there been moments of generosity that come to mind as you reflect on recent events? So let's just take a moment to answer either one of these questions, or you want to try to answer all three. And I'm going to invite you to put them into the chat, an answer. And it's always an invitation. And Mike will take a peek at what you all are saying so we can say them out loud. So I'm just going to pause for a moment to give you time to think about what those answers might be.
And I did add mine into chat. I've included the faith, family, friends, and of course my beloved Liverpool Football Club. Chris added being in community. My daughter's joie de vivre, joy of life, inspires me and gives me energy every day. My friends and family and belief in the power of connection. Community of friends, my chosen family, as well as walks and laughter. Oh, I have friends, colleagues who also feel global events very closely to their hearts. And when they happen, we come together and run events where others can come and share connections with spirit. My partner and dear friends are constant supports. Family, colleagues, friendships rooted in spirituality, my young children and my past achievements, being present with my children, living in their world. Moments of generosity. I was sponsored to attend school with funds that my parents could not afford. Changed my life. Nature.
As you're reading them out loud, Mike, and if anybody wants to continue, please do so. But also, I noticed something that happens inside of me, not just with thinking about my own answers to these questions, but by hearing all of yours. I find that for me, it is like this collective of resources that touch me as well. And I think this is part of how we connect with others when we hear the answers. And what was your reflection, Mike, as you were listening, saying them out loud?
I found myself taking a deeper breath, to be honest. I noticed that it just kind of lightened my load a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I certainly felt the same. So we are going to invite you a little bit later, but you might want to peek in now. Did you notice any sensations connected to your answer or hearing the answers of others? Some of you may have noticed a deeper breath or your muscles relax, but maybe you're not, you haven't been paying attention to your sensory system much, and we're going to be asking you to do that in our presentation. So Mike, over to you.
Sure. So all of this, as Elaine noted earlier, is about biology versus mental weakness. When we have responses that are sad, angry, whatever, that is not because we're mentally weak. It's because our biology is working for our protection. And we've done this work all over the world where we've shared our community resiliency model and the wellness skills and the trauma resiliency model with people in different communities throughout the world. And we have found, without exception, that there are common human reactions to stressful and traumatic events that affect the mind, body, and spirit. And that's based, we see this also within the laws of nature. We draw heavily on inspiration from the laws of nature, that there are natural rhythms in nature that also exist within the human nervous system, that our human nervous system has a natural rhythm in response to stress and trauma. The good news is, like we see in nature, where we have seasons where weather changes, sometimes in minutes, sometimes it takes longer than minutes, but we do not have to be trapped by the storms of our body, meaning the sensations of discomfort and pain. We can draw our attention to sensations of well-being intentionally and transform our experience to heal our hearts, minds, and bodies, so we don't have to feel like we're stuck in that storm of discomfort and pain. The beautiful thing about this is that it's rooted in research. It's rooted in what we know about the brain. We know that we can cultivate well-being because of terms like and processes like neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is just means the lifelong capacity of the brain to change and rewire itself in response to stimulation of learning and experience. We often refer to this as the neuroscience word for hope. That there are processes called tuning where we can change the actual structure of the brain by increasing the number of connections between neurons when we have positive experiences or when we bring positive experiences to mind. We also see another process in neuroplasticity called pruning, where neural connections, communication between brain cells that aren't used weaken and often disappear. So we call that the use it or lose it principle. So as we learn skills that enhance our well-being, and we are experiencing less and less reactions that are of discomfort and distress, we see this growth in our biology based on our experiences and our intentions.
You know, Mike, as you were talking, I was thinking one of the hardships that I've had of late is about the deep political divides that exist in the United States. And
Yeah.
sometimes I can really feel myself kind of going down the rabbit hole of, oh, when is this going to end? And going into what I guess you would call between the high and low zone. And then I'll think about what else is true. I go, okay, wait a second, I have to think about what else is true. And
Yeah.
then, oh, that's right. There were 400 of my citizens in my little town of Claremont protesting with signs on a very busy corner, and they think like I do. And all of a sudden, I kind of tear up just even thinking about it. It brings another element of, I guess, relief, knowing that yes, with that's happening, there's also that's happening. So that
It's oh, go
it
ahead. Sorry.
changes. Go ahead. It
Yeah.
changes.
Well, and that's to your point, right? It's the what else is also true. It
Yes.
doesn't, being able to intentionally focus on that element of your experience doesn't negate the challenge, the distress, the pain, the discomfort. It just also highlights what else is also true about our experience that sometimes gets overlooked when we're feeling pain. Which brings us to the four brain circuits. Richard Davidson has done research on our brains and he's identified four circuits associated with well-being that can grow, that we can intentionally practice certain skills and expand. The first being the resilience circuit, and the resilience circuit talks about the rapidity with which we can recover from adversity. The positive outlook circuit. One has a healthy and robust positive outlook circuitry when they can see and recognize the positive in others, as well as the ability to savor positive experiences, similar to what you just offered, Elaine, right? When you can identify what you're seeing on that street corner and some of the things that we saw in chat, it's being able to recognize and savor those positive experiences. The attention circuit, emotional well-being, is linked to the ability to pay attention, that as we expand our well-being, our ability to focus and think clearly becomes easier. Not easy necessarily, but easier. That's what the brain science is showing us. And then finally, the generosity circuit, engaging in generosity, reliably activates brain circuits that support well-being. Not only just acts of generosity that we may provide, but also observing acts of generosity in others or receiving acts of generosity.
And that's one of the reasons why we added that question to our introductory questions. We go, my goodness, most people that we've talked to can mention or think about an act of generosity. And when we do that, that's one of the ways that we can continue to cultivate our well-being, even when times are very distressful. And, you know, think of us that all of us who've worked internationally, when we've worked at the scene of a disaster, and the generosity that you see that happens between people, you know, is so touching. And also people will give so much of themselves, and people that have very little, I've seen give so much in those kinds of dire circumstances that we've been so honored to be a part of the response.
And I think in those situations, I appreciate you saying that, Elaine, because I think in those when that happens, I have a tendency to just focus on the distress and see the suffering, and I have learned to be more intentional in recognizing those acts of generosity just for that reason, right? That it helps expand my well-being so that I can continue to give, I can continue to provide support, whereas otherwise I might feel so overwhelmed I start to withdraw and not help as effectively as I want. And so I find this work and these studies to be vitally important to help support what I want to do in life, is help reduce distress, not only in my own life, but others. And so one of the other features, we'll talk about this in much more detail when we talk about our skill of tracking, which is paying attention to sensations of body. Tracking expands body literacy. And so body literacy refers to attuning to sensations originating from within our own bodies, much like how we acquire reading literacy in childhood. We can also develop the ability to tune into these bodily sensations and decipher how our body sense influences our daily decisions and behaviors. And this is a very important skill because it's been associated with improved thinking, improved impulsivity control, as well as emotional regulation when we can increase our ability to read our own sensory experience.
So the other aspect of how we come forward in the world is we've tried to take what happens to us and put it in simple language and to create a common language. So we talk about the zone of well-being. It's also called the OK zone. Some people call it the resilient zone. Pretty much people that become community resiliency model teachers, they come from such a wide variety of backgrounds that they found that their particular community may have a way of wanting to describe it. Like there's a university in the United States, Virginia Tech, that they've adapted this model throughout the university. They call it the flow zone, which it was a group that students got together, and that's what they wanted to call this state. So this is kind of our state of optimal functioning, and this is when we are at our best. But it doesn't mean that we're calm. And this is something where people get confused. Oh, is the resilient zone, your Zen state? No, it's when it's all the array of human emotions that we can have. We can be excited, worried, relaxed, angry, tired, sad, happy, calm. But the difference is that if I have had many times a passionate anger, but that passionate anger is contained within a zone of well-being. I'm not so angry that I'm hurting myself or hurting others, but maybe I'm making a very strong point about, let's say, the world condition that I imagine many of you have done as well. But there's a certain energy in it that is not connected to my well-being. This state can be excitatory, where we can experience what's called like a sympathetic charge. But the sympathetic charge, which some people would say hyperarousal, is not necessarily negative. It can be if we get stuck in sympathetic hyperarousal that are connected to other states, but it can be nourishing. It's like if you ask me, one of my resources is a roller coaster. Oh, and what do you notice on the inside? I'll say, oh, my heart's beating fast, but I feel a sense of well-being. But also sadness. Sadness is part of the human condition. And when my mom died, I was really sad. Could I manage the experience of the sadness? Yes, I could. And, we had many services for her and remembered, her spunkiness and the lovely person that she was. But those were all parts of the human condition that were in my zone of well-being. And then this is like, oh my goodness, there's a lot happening in this slide. So we still have the zone of well-being, and this, I used emojis, but we have these thunderbolts that come in. Thunderbolts can be the stressful events that happen to us in life, or the series of stressful events, or reminders of them. So instead of being in this okay zone, the flow zone, we can get bumped into that high zone that I mentioned earlier. Our muscles are tight. This is when we may say things we regret and have to apologize for. And if we get stuck there, it can be problematic, not only for ourselves, but for people around us. But we also can get stuck into the low zone when we're depressed, sad, disconnected. I don't want to leave my bed. Going into the higher low zone is part of the human experience. Getting stuck there is when it's problematic. So when we talk about the zones in the community resiliency model, which we're going to share some skills with you, these are the zones that we use, and it's not pejorative. That doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. If you went into the higher low zone, it means that you're incredibly human, and that as a human being, this is part of the human experience. But it is incumbent upon us, how do we restore balance? How do we get back into our zone of well-being? And this becomes very important for us to be reading our own nervous systems and tracking where we are. So I'm just going to ask you for a moment, what zone are you in right now? Are you in your resilient zone, your flow zone, okay zone? Are you in the high zone or the low zone? So I'm going to invite you again, if you'd like, to put that into the chat and see where our group is today. And I only think it's fair if I'm asking you to do it. I am in my I'm going to just say OK Zone because it's easier to spell. And I'm going to say a little on the high side because I feel a lot of energy being with all of you today. Oh, yes, deep breath. Yeah, and sometimes when we actually identify the zones, we also can have a discernment, go, gosh, I was really in my low zone 2 days ago. And that's when I just couldn't even finish the work that I needed to do. So all those different ways that we can be in the world. So it's important for all of us. We often start our staff meetings by Mike, by asking everybody what zone they're in so we know what to do.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, over to you.
Well, so the community resiliency model is a set of 6 wellness skills that can be shared across a lifespan with people with different abilities, across different cultures, with people from diverse backgrounds. They can be shared during and after a disaster, and they can be shared for common community healing. These skills have been taught to people in the Philippines. I mean, 75 countries, over 75 countries. I think we've taught them in all 50 states in the US. And we have seen, I have been really honored when we get invited into communities to see how effective these skills can be for people in community, for people in organizations that we go and share these skills with. So I know in the next slide, you'll see that we have the 6 skills can be represented on our hand, where we have tracking as the foundational skill, which is used with all the other skills. But the other 5 skills of the community resilience model are each finger. So we have maybe resourcing, grounding, help now, gesturing, shift and stay. And of course, we're going to cover probably 2, if we can, 3 skills today, namely tracking and resourcing we're going to focus on today.
But there is a way to
Yep.
learn all the skills, right, Mike? They can go to our free iChill app.
Absolutely, and it's available in 5 different languages. So far, we're adding additional languages as well, but it's currently available in English, Arabic, Spanish, Hebrew, Ukrainian, soon to be in simple Chinese, Korean, and Portuguese.
And we're continually to add the apps as we get funding to add them. And so
Yes.
we hope we'll have many, many more languages as we go by. So, but you know that you can learn and it's on not only if you have a smartphone, but if you don't have a smartphone, you can just go on the internet and put in ichillapp.com and that comes to all the skills. So you can listen to it on your computer. So I'm going to talk about the first skill, which is tracking, which is reading sensations. And we already mentioned that body literacy is kind of the fancy term that I've been using. I've been doing a lot of work in school. So I've been saying, you know, when we can teach children how to read and write, and we can also learn how to read our sensations. So we all have a nervous system and a body and mind that we've already said is designed for well-being to heal. And when we pay attention to these sensations connected to well-being, we experience a state of inner balance. We can expand our well-being. And there's a number of side effects that happen as a result of that we'll talk about. But the more that we focus our attention, the more well-being expands. So this can become like a practice. And I see that Sam Habimana is a community resiliency model teacher that I met many years ago in Tanzania. And I'm hoping maybe he can come and speak, Chris, about his research that he just finished his dissertation on. But he found that when people learned these skills, that even people who had been enemies, they had greater compassion and forgiveness. And that study really underscored for us what we had seen anecdotally around the world. But to be able to learn how to balance the nervous system and then to have the results of hope and compassion, that was quite surprising for us as we were learning the different side effects of learning how to read the nervous system. So tracking is noticing and paying attention to the sensations inside your body and determining for each one of us, is that sensation that I'm experiencing, like when you called up the things that help you in your life, is that a pleasant sensation, unpleasant, or neutral? And then to focus your attention on the sensations that are pleasant or neutral and sit with it for a while. And so, you know, begin asking yourself, well, what do you notice on the inside? Are the sensations pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? Because what we pay attention to grows, like the neuroscience when we tune the nervous system with our positive experiences. And I love this statement. I just found it and I wanted to put it in there. Our ability to perceive signals from within our bodies is fundamental to our sense of embodiment, motivation, and overall well-being. And I certainly am a trained therapist, so I always knew that thinking and feeling was important, but this is one of the most important things I've learned. When we learn how to tell the difference between sensations of distress and well-being, we then have a choice of what to pay attention to on the inside. Yes, there will be storms, like in this little illustration of a woman who's experiencing tension and heat. She's really angry and in her high zone, but then she calls in something to quell her nervous system, and she can notice a cooling down and feeling calmer and less tension, and she's back into that resilient zone. So when we learn about tracking sensations, also it's important for all of you to know that for some people, tracking even pleasant or neutral ones, they can bump into sometimes uncomfortable or even painful sensations. So learning and working with the skills that we're sharing with you is a choice. If that happens to people, it sometimes just means that sometimes the resource they're using, like I could talk about my grandmother who died, and I can sense well-being, but then sometimes I'm going, oh, but she's gone. And so those kinds of sensations can be linked. And so that we just learn how we can also focus on the well-being sensations. And the more that we do that, the more that strengthens those neuronal pathways. So these are lots of sensory words I'm showing you here. And we're going to do a little exercise to show you how you can start to experience your sensory system. So I am going to ask you, this has to do with temperature. I'm going to ask you to put your hands together, palms facing, and to slowly start rubbing your hands together, increasing the speed until you notice a change in temperature. I'm going to do it fast. And as I'm doing it fast, I'm noticing that my palms are getting warm. And if I go really fast, they start getting hot. And then I'm going to slowly stop and notice if there's a change. And yes, now my hands are warm. They're definitely cooling down. Oh, and I think I'm also sensing some tingling, little vibration. So that is your sensory system. And that is helping you to learn the language of sensation. But the very best way to learn how to experience sensations is through resourcing. And a resourcing can be anything. It can be something, someone real or imagined. They can be internal. Maybe you have strong legs because you run races. It can be a supportive person, a place, an idea, favorite sport, an animal, one's family, a game, faith, movie, a singer. You can see it goes on and on. Prayer. So when we think about that resource, like you did earlier with those questions, and then it's like you're painting a blank canvas and you're painting all the details of that resource and you're bringing that to your awareness. Here's some ideas. Like if you're thinking about a place in nature, does it have sounds, smells? Are there things that you touch in nature? Is as you expand that element of the resource, it becomes deeper for you. And then we ask you to really notice the sensations connected to that. As I've mentioned, sometimes there can be a shift, sometimes there can be sadness as we talk about it, but also to invite you to move your awareness and shift it to maybe a more pleasant memory that can evoke more sensations of well-being. And of course, if it's too hard, you just stop and maybe you use a different resource. But what we'd like you to do right now is here's our resourcing recipe. We're going to ask you to take a moment to think about one of your resources. And as you think about it, to describe it to yourself, put the details in. And as you put the details in, notice what's happening on the inside. And to start asking yourself those questions. Oh, as I'm thinking about my resource, is it pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? Are there changes in my breathing, heart rate, or muscle tension? And we're going to ask you to stay with those sensations that are pleasant or neutral for 12 to 15 seconds so that you can really experience the sensations connected to your well-being. And as you're doing that, I'm going to ask dear Susan to get ready to put us into small groups we're going to be in a small group for about 10 minutes. You'll be with, there's going to be 3 people in each group, and I'm going to invite each of you to share your resource with each other. And as you share the resource, your resource is for the question to come back. Well, what do you notice on the inside? And is that sensation pleasant or neutral? And to bring your attention to sensations that are pleasant or neutral. All right. So we're going to ask you right now to join your breakout room, to share your resources, and to ask those simple questions.
I know the breakout room will be closing officially in about 15 seconds, and we'll have everybody back. I always appreciate when we do this exercise, especially on Zoom, is we get to see people come back into the main room, most of which are grinning or smiling in some way.
Yeah, so nicely put, Michael. And allow me to take 10 seconds. And we met in a group of 3. And Elaine was also there for a short time. It didn't feel that we are meeting for the first time. It seemed we have known each other since eternity.
Well, I so appreciate you saying that, because I want to ask, if anybody would like to share it about their experience, and by all means, please. And I think there's something to be said about what you just said, is that when we do this, when we ask people and be able to share our resources with each other, there is that sense, there can be that sense of connection. There can be that sense of, oh, we do feel connected.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you wanted to expand on that experience.
I can. I mean, Christine and we spoke about common threads that we have. I follow a certain spiritual guru who gives me a sense of calmness and so on and so forth. And then Christine also spoke about her meditative experiences, and she also spoke about how flower, kind of working with flowers gives her a different kind of joy, which is again a form of meditation. And then Matthew spoke about serving the underprivileged. That's another form of meditation, right? So basically, we are all using different ways to get into the middle zone that you spoke about.
Exactly.
Christine,
And
would you like to add, Christina or Christine? Sorry, I'm confusing the name.
No, Christina, no, that's perfect, Ashish. Thank you.
Yeah. And Matthew, if you'd like to add anything, please feel free.
No, I think that it is what you have said, actually, it is okay. Fine. Thank you.
Well, and I think that highlights for me also what we see when we get to share resources with each other, is that as someone else shares a resource, we may find connection in the sense of, oh, I also find that enjoyable. But even when I talk with someone that shares a resource that may not be my resource, I still feel their sense of joy, their sense of peace, their sense of calm when they talk about it. Right.
Yeah.
That's the shared piece. I think that's also part of that connection that we can feel when we work in this way. And it doesn't negate the suffering. It doesn't minimize the challenges and the distress that we may be feeling in our lives and that we are observing the stuff, right? It is the what else is also true. It's also part of our experience. It's what helps fill our cup, right? So that we can then
absolutely. Yeah.
go out and help others. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you. Elaine.
Well, I thank you so much, Ashish, for speaking up, because I think that's what we've seen. I've seen people in the same room that think very differently. In fact, can be very actively engaged in disagreement, and then all of a sudden they'll say, "Oh, but my dog," and they'll all go, "Oh, I have a dog too," and then they all start talking about their dogs, and you all of a sudden see this lovely connection. Sam tells me stories of perpetrators and survivors of the genocide coming together, talking about their cows and how they love their cows and how that brought them together. So thanks, Sam, for nodding your head. So I think that this is such a simple exercise, and that we can do with our families, we can do with our colleagues, with ourselves. But there's one other thing I want to say before I turn it back over to Chris, in that we have really adapted a lot of our skills in a conversational way. And I want to share this with you, because I think this is something that you know, you can activate today with people if you wanted to. And I'm just going to show you one more slide. And here, let me just go to it. And it's conversational resourcing. And essentially it says, and because we work so often, I know many of us do, when people have been unsafe. Can you tell me when you were able to get to a safer space? Who helped you escape or get away? Can you remember the moment you knew you were going to get away? Did anyone else escape with you? Now, I bring these questions up because we are working with resourcing. Because when people think about an existential moment of survival, you'll see them like take a deeper breath. You'll see their muscles relax and they go, oh yeah, there was this person that came and they helped me get out. And I was able to be in this safer space. My aunt brought me in, or whatever it might be that the answer will be. So these are just some of the questions. We have many of them. But I wanted to share that one. To know that you can craft even the other three questions we asked you in the beginning, in a very conversational way, to talk to people that you care about. Mike and I were at Children's Hospital Los Angeles, and they've adopted our model. They're training all their staff because, of course, they're doing very hard work too, where they burn out. And we did the generosity exercise with about 12 of our CRIM teachers there. And I have to tell you, it was an hour of my life that I will never forget, as they talked about the generosities. So I really encourage you to think about bringing that to your spaces and how that might affect not only you, but the people in who you care about and are caring for in the world. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to my dear friend, Chris. Chris.
Thank you very much indeed, Elaine, for turning it over to me, and to you and Mike for such a timely session. My goodness, you fitted in so much into the precise time that we asked you. For those of you who have an interest in a long-term interest in mental health, just to let you know that the World Health Organization has just let out about an hour ago the next edition of the Mental Health Atlas, which was 2024. It's version number 7, and so you might like to just click on that and have a look later when you've got time. But it seems to me to be a useful resource for many people. We've done a great deal of learning today, Mike and Elaine, and I think that's so helpful. Yes, in a time of difficulty and so on, in a time of trouble, and of course it's really helpful to be able to ally the thinking that you have shared with us to ourselves first and foremost. And it's not often, in fact, that people who are caregiving and who are responsible for programs and for running organizations and for making things work in the world, particularly in the field of mental health, it's not often that they, interestingly enough, that they think of themselves. And so one of the things that I really wanted to achieve, and I think we have achieved it very well today, is to notify people that this is a way of being able to look after yourself, and to be able to regulate yourself in that sense. The other thing that I've been privileged to have undertaken a course of study with Mike and Elaine and the team from TRI. And the thing that I noticed immediately, and I noticed it again today, is that there is such a particular vocabulary within the whole question of thinking about yourself through a neurological lens, and it's not the same as the psychology lens, and it's not the same as the program delivery lens, and so on. It's not the same as psychiatry. It's its own thing, and that, of course, gives us a very refreshing way of thinking about things from the point of view of ourselves and, of course, the people around us, whether they're professionals, whether they're part of our family. Someone in the chat mentioned their family earlier on. And I think that's really helpful to be able to put a new language to our thoughts and to our thinking. Very important, I think. I was in the breakout group with Chris Helm and Kim, and we came to a very nice conclusion, really. We felt that it was really important to recognize the resources of others, to recognize that it was very important to remain curious within the context of resourcing. And in the end, we felt that maybe to be curious was to be human.
Yes.
And that seemed to me to be, a lovely way to sort of try to summarize where we had got to as a little group, and where in a way we have got to as a group today, as a community of people today coming together to think about this whole question of healing our hearts, minds and bodies in such uncertain times. So I just want to thank you on behalf of everybody. Elaine, thank you, Michael, very much indeed for giving us this time, which I think, really appreciate. And we love the tone in which you've given it to us, because of course you shared it with love and affection, and that is to be much appreciated. Thank you.
Chris. And I just want to mention too, you have the PDF of our slide presentation. There's a lot more there. Alexa, stop. There's the research, there's how to contact us. So know that there's a lot more there that you can look at if you want to learn a little bit more about what we do.
Thanks. And there's also the app, which you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Yeah. All the best. And I'm feeling really in the zone.
Me too. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you
Chris.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.